On behalf of Honorable Viam Pillay to ask question 165/2020, which is directed to Minister for Defence, National Security and Policy in Rural and Maritime Development and thus Disaster Management. Can the Minister inform Parliament how the operations of Republic of Fiji military forces has been affected by COVID-19? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I give the floor to the Minister for Defence, National Security and Policing, Rural and Maritime Development and National Disaster Management, the Honourable Inia Sri Ratu. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I thank the Honourable member for the question. Again, yesterday I did answer a similar question on the role of the Fiji Police Force, and I'm thankful for this opportunity to also share before this August House in answering this question about the work that the RFMF currently undertaking in terms of COVID response and, of course, some of their normal duties as well, Mr. Speaker, sir. Again, I begin by offering my gratitude to the frontline workers, including our health workers and members of the discipline forces, and of course together with all the government officials that are working with the Ministry of Health in our fight against the pandemic, Mr. Speaker. So, but very briefly, for the RFMF in terms of the engagement in the various tasks in support of the Ministry of Health, as follows: quarantine security, contact tracing and swabbing. For testing, we have the FEMAT security, EOC operations, particularly for SUVA and DMO Central, and of course in the West as well. That SUVA includes Nasino as well, Mr. Speaker, sir. The border monitoring and patrolling and security, our disinfection of vessels in Natobi and SUVA, the Blue Lane, for visiting foreign yachts, assisting in the conduct of vaccination drive, awareness and security, the extraction and retrieval of positive and primary contacts from homes to isolation facilities, conducting food distribution to the general public in lockdown areas, the renovation of COVID-19 men's ward in CWM, the preparation of FEMAT and isolation facilities, the movement and the transportation of medical stores and supplies, setting up of emergency operating centers, to name a few, Mr. Speaker, sir. And all members of the August House would appreciate the diverse responsibilities and the huge tasking that the RFMF is given during this pandemic fight, Mr. Speaker, sir. On the other hand, I also wish to state, Mr. Speaker, sir, that the RFMF continues to assist the Ministry of Health in some other areas. I'll mention about the assistance at CWM Hospital in the preparation of meals while they were doing some repairs at the kitchen facility in CWM. And of course, we also are assisting in the setup of the Emergency Care Coordination Center, and the center is currently being set up with a request from the Ministry of Health for the provision of a non-clinical response to evacuate COVID identified personnel. That includes the deceased as well, to hospital for elevated response. Mr. Speaker, sir, very briefly on its regular activities in conjunction with COVID operations. Again, this is the challenge, and I did state yesterday, same with the police, we need to work smarter. We have to create bubbles. And in terms of bubbles, Mr. Speaker, sir, apart from the RFMF camps in the various divisions in the West and in the Central Division, we also have schools being used for SUVA, we also asked for the use of Nambua. Nambua Primary School, sir, and of course RSMS and Subagram as well. This is to have separate bubbles so that work can be maintained and of course keep the spread of the virus to a minimum amongst the members of the forces. I did state in earlier in the House that particularly with service personnel, when one is down, the whole team goes with that particular individual because of the way they operate, whether it be a section or platoon or company and so forth, Mr. Speaker, sir. So the infantry units continue with their normal work, Mr. Speaker, sir, particularly in terms of the normal patrols in the various areas. And also the training continues, particularly the preparation of our personnel for pre-deployment training, either at Black Rock or other camps, including the members of the reserve at Nasinu, Mr. Speaker, sir. So that also continues. And may I also highlight, Mr. Speaker, sir, the work undertaken by the Fiji Navy, despite COVID, and even the Chief of Navy had a few of the crews, despite being positive, they were in their bubble. They just continued with their normal patrols, Mr. Speaker, sir. The RFNS Savanada conducted 3 maritime security and fisheries law enforcement patrols in our EEZ and pockets of high seas adjacent to our maritime boundary. And that also included joint patrols with the Australian Navy and the French Navy. And during that period, they conducted about 45 boarding in total, Mr. Speaker, sir. RFNS Kadau and RFNS Volsinga, these are the hydrographic vessels, Mr. Speaker, sir. They were working in the Nandi waters, conducting surveys and resurveys on updating our navigational charts. The RFNS Kikau has also conducted 3 onshore patrols, ensuring that our fisheries are protected, and the number of local inshore vessels boarded totaled 35. All this, again, Mr. Speaker, sir, were done under contactless and strict COVID-19 protocols. For the RFMF engineers, Mr. Speaker, sir, may I also highlight that despite COVID, work for our RFMF engineers continued. They have personnel at Nosori, Bunindawa, Sawani, Lami, Nabua, Korobou, and of course in the quarantine facilities and some as well for the Blue Lane. A total of 132 personnel involved. And for projects, this also continued with Namoli Kindergarten. This is in Bonoileu, close to Lambasa town, Mr. Speaker, sir. That saw 10 personnel deployed for a duration of about 42 days. Also in Lobe Lobe, there was a project there by the Commissioner Northern, so the RFMF engineers assisted. Kortoltolu Primary School, involving 2 teachers' quarters, and of course, as we speak, Mr. Speaker, sir, they also have their personnel at Lekutu Secondary School. Mr. Speaker, sir, I know that the Honourable Minister for Education, while answering question 4, or the 4th oral question in today's oral paper, will talk more about Lekutu Secondary School because it was raised by the Honourable Salatan Redondo during her response to the ministerial statement by the Honourable Attorney General on Monday, Mr. Speaker. So I don't know when was the last time the Honourable Member has been to Lekutu Secondary to see the work that has been undertaken already at Nasinu, at Lekutu Secondary School. So the Honourable Minister for Education will give the details to her, but let me assure her that government continues to, probably the picture that she's referring to is the demolition of the of the of the
Building.
structure so that the next work can continue. Mr. Speaker, sir, she doesn't know that. She didn't mention that two temporary structures built to Category 3 standard
3.
have already been constructed in Lekutu Secondary. And now we have 10 RFMF engineers in Lekutu. We have the Australian engineers arrived about 2 weeks ago. They have started the work already on purchasing and whatever. The main force, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have just, the last rotation was just yesterday, bringing in the last of the component of the main combat engineering team, construction engineering team, Mr. Speaker, sir, and the construction work will start for the main block next Monday, Mr. Speaker, sir. But that doesn't mean that nothing has been done, as alluded to by the Honourable Member. I don't know. Again, when was the last time she was in Lekutu Secondary School, Mr. Speaker, sir?
Order.
Informations that come to this August House have to be factual, Mr. Speaker, sir. So I'll let the Minister for Education touch on that. But that very briefly is the deployment of the RFMF, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you.
Thank the